Hi, I'm Jeff Cook, a dog behavior therapist with BarkBusters. A dog that barks too much can be a real nuisance. It can be irritating for you and for your neighbors. And you can face some hefty fines from your local governments if your dog's barking is annoying your neighbors. In this episode, I'm going to help you understand your dog's barking and show you some helpful hints on how to teach it what you want it to bark at and what you don't. Dogs bark for many reasons. Dogs can bark for attention, they can bark out of boredom, they can bark out of fear, or they can just be protecting their territory. But in my experience, one thing is very clear. Happy dogs bark a lot less than a stressed dog. Dogs bark mainly to sound an alarm. And just like you and I, they only need to sound an alarm if they're worried. So when they're barking, they're telling you they're worried. A dog that's barking less and is worried of less is obviously going to be much more relaxed, much less stressed. They're not on guard duty, they're not on alert all the time. To illustrate this, look at, say, a confident, relaxed dog, say a big Newfoundland. You'll see they're just quite quiet, calm, and relaxed. And compare that to a Chihuahua, which tends to be a little more nervous and yappy. And certainly small dogs get a reputation or a stereotype of being little yappers. That's mainly because their temperaments are generally more nervous. They're much smaller, so they obviously have much more to worry about. Many people love their dogs to bark because they think they're doing a great service being a guard dog. But just like those annoying car alarms that go off all the time, you just get conditioned to ignoring it. And the same thing happens with your dog. When it starts to bark at everything going by, every bird, plane, person passing by your house, then you and your neighbors will ignore those alarms. And the dogs won't alert you to when there really is a problem on your property. So a much better guard dog is one that only barks when there's truly something to worry about. In nature, dogs would learn from their pack what's a threat and what's not, so what they have to bark at and what they don't need to worry about. Now, when you bring a dog into your own family and it becomes part of your human pack, that responsibility becomes yours as the leader. And you should be the leader. If you're not, you should be watching the episodes regarding leadership. So how do we teach our dogs what they need to bark at and what they don't? Well, we're going to use a system very similar to what we've taught them in some general obedience. We're going to use a growly tone and a loud clap. Every time they make a mistake, it kind of goes like this. Ah! And when they do the right thing, when they stop the barking, we're going to praise them in a nice, high, happy voice. Oh, good dog, good dog, good dog. That way they'll be able to figure out exactly what the mistake is and what the good behavior is. Now, dogs bark in many different situations, so let's take a look at a few of those examples. Many dogs bark at other dogs or people passing by on the footpath. Now, that's okay if those people or dogs are a threat to you, but in most cases you'll find that there's no danger that that dog is going to come in and rob your house. So your dog should really ignore the passing dog traffic. Now, let me show you how to do that. As your dog starts to bark at the other dog, big loud clap and bah. Ah! And as he looks back towards you, then praise him. And that's how you start to teach him. Barking is the mistake. When he looks back to you and starts to ignore the other dog, you praise him. Consistency is very important in teaching your dog not to bark. And the best way to do that is spend about 15 minutes outside with your dog monitoring when other dogs are passing by. Each time they make a mistake, you're ready to correct them, and each time they do the right thing, you're there to praise them. Now, you can make this a little bit easier by enlisting the help of one of your neighbors and just have them walk back and forth with another dog. And every time your dog reacts, you correct it. Every time it does the right thing and looks back to you, you can praise it. And that's the quickest way to get your dog understanding what its job is, what it's meant to bark at, and what it's not. Another common barking situation is at the front door. The doorbell rings and the dog starts barking, flies to the door, and starts barking at the person at the door. Now, in many situations, this can become quite aggressive and can easily frighten people, and particularly small children. So it's very important to get this situation under control. What your dog is doing is making the decision for you who's allowed to come into your house and who's not. And since you're paying all the bills, I think you get that decision. Now, let's talk about how to do that. What you want to do is, again, similar to the last situation, correct the mistake the instant it happens. As soon as your dog starts barking, bah, and clap. Okay? When the dog stops and looks back towards you, lots and lots of praise. And again, the easiest way to manufacture this situation and to practice it is to have someone, one of the family members, just sneak around and ring the doorbell. The dog won't catch on to it, but they'll think it's a real situation and it'll really give you a big advantage. Repeat that several times and you'll find that slowly your dog starts to get the idea that they're not the one to answer the door. One reason many dogs bark is simply boredom. Dogs need mental stimulation, and if we don't give it to them, they'll make up their own games. And those games can be chasing after birds and barking at them, barking at airplanes, chasing cats and barking at those, and also barking at leaves in a tree. I mean, the potential is unlimited. I see this mainly in working dogs like Border Collies and Kelpies that don't have any work to do. If this resembles a problem that you're having, you need to exercise your dog's brain. And this means walking them, but training them in walking them, making them walk at your side, pay attention to you the whole time. Sit and stay, turn when you turn, watch you for changes in speed and direction. The more you stimulate your dog's brain on a walk and when you're working with it, the less bored it's going to be when it's in the yard. When they are in the yard by themselves, make sure they have lots of fun things to play with. Things like bones, rope toys, chew toys, food puzzles, all these things are great in terms of getting the dog's attention onto the toys rather than at barking at the neighbor hanging their washing out next door. For more ideas, have a look at the Boredom Buster episode. There are some easy logistical solutions to deal with some barking problems. If your dog is barking from behind a gate at passing pedestrian or dog traffic, you can try blocking their vision by using a piece of shade cloth, a piece of wood or steel. In a lot of cases, if you reduce the stimulus to the barking also reduces. If your dog's barking at night, for instance at wildlife, things like possums, cats, lizards, then a great way to deal with that is to lock them in a kennel, a laundry, or a garage. At night, remember, everything is a lot more still. And so your dog, particularly if it's a young dog, is much more likely to startle at the slightest sound. If you put them in an enclosed area, they'll actually feel much more secure. They'll get a better night's sleep, and so will you. Now, you have to be consistent. Consistency is very important here because if your dog gets away with barking half the time, then there's a very good chance that they're going to keep trying because, hey, they have 50% odds of being successful at the barking. You have to realize that dogs don't have to bark. They're not just saying hello when they're barking at the dog next door through the fence. They're genuinely alarmed and worried. And the quicker you teach them that that's nothing to worry about, the more time they can spend relaxing and lounging around the yard. And until next time, remember to have fun with your quiet and relaxed dog.
When the doorbell rings and your pooch goes wild, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters! When your dog knocks down your guest-sent child, who are you gonna call?
Who's in charge, you or your dog? One way you'll know is if he's a barker. Barking dogs can be a real nuisance, not only for the owners, but for neighbors. Dogs don't bark when their owners provide them with the canine leadership they need. BarkBusters will address all obedience, socialization, and behavioral issues in your home where your dog learns best. It's holistic, non-harsh, and fun. Call